Hello, everyone. Tonight we are slipping into a world where the air hums with the buzz of gnats and the ground squelches beneath a skin of green slime. Picture yourself at the edge of a marsh that seems endless, just pools of black water stitched together with floating mats of grass reeds bending under their own weight and the faint smell of salt rot and something ancient. You're standing where the marshland tribe once walked the people whose soft shoes never left a single footprint. And you probably won't survive 5 steps before something slithery finds your ankle interesting. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle along the edge of this strange, forgotten place, your boots squelching into the mud with every step leaving deep, ugly holes that fill with brackish water the moment you lift your foot. The marsh does not like visitors. The reeds whisper about you. The frogs go quiet for just a beat too long. And you realize something odd despite the softness of the earth. Despite centuries of people crossing these waters, there are no footprints. Not a single one. The mud seems virgin untouched, as though no human ever dared. A dragonfly nearly the size of your hand zips past your face and you flinch. Dragonflies of that size once ruled these swamps. There's your authoritative historical fact for the evening. In the Carboniferous period, Meganeura dragonflies had wingspans over 2 feet across thanks to higher oxygen levels. Imagine that smacking into your headlamp. The land here is tricky silt that sucks water, that deceives moss, that hides sinkholes. And somewhere in the dark distance, you can hear the soft splash of a fish. Or is it something else? The marshland tribe, legend says, knew every ripple, every trick. They moved through this waterlogged world without a trace, gliding like ghosts. And speaking of ghosts, here's an odd fact to chew on while you try not to get eaten by mosquitoes in some marsh cultures around the world. People used to believe will-o'-the-wisps, those eerie lights over the bog, were the souls of the lost trying to lure you to your doom. Historians still debate whether these lights were just swamp gas igniting or something a bit more personal. You push forward the mud trying to claim your boots. You imagine what it was like for the marshland folk. No clumsy boots, no splashes. They wore shoes soft as a heron step molded from nature itself, so they left nothing behind but ripples. You look down at your own tracks and grimace, so much for stealth. There's a patch of reeds ahead that looks wrong, pressed down in a pattern maybe, or just your imagination. The light plays tricks out here. A heron rises suddenly, its wings beating the air with the sound of an old book's pages turning. You watch it disappear, graceful knowing. You're not as graceful. Your leg sinks almost to the knee, and as you wrestle it free, you swear. You hear laughter, soft like wind through reeds. Or maybe that's just your mind playing games. The marsh does that. And here's your first joke for the night. If you're trying to sneak up on a marshland tribe, maybe don't bring potato chip bags. Crinkle those and even the frogs will know you're coming. And yes, I speak from personal experience. The sun starts to sink, turning the water to melted copper. The hum of insects grows louder. The air thicker. You wipe sweat from your brow, squinting at the endless green, the endless wet, and you wonder, how did they do it? How did they leave no mark? How did they pass through a place like this and simply vanish? Historians still argue whether the marshland tribe truly left no trace or if we've just been looking in the wrong places all these years. Some say their paths are hidden beneath centuries of silt, their shoes decayed into the very fabric of the swamp. Others think the tribe's secret was part engineering, part ritual shoes made from creatures of the marsh steppes timed to the heartbeat of the land. No one really agrees, but isn't that part of the fun? The stars begin to blink through the dusk, reflected in black pools that never seem to end. The marshland tribe walked here long ago, but tonight it's your turn. Just try not to get stuck, or eaten, or both. The night deepens, and with it, the marsh seems to breathe. Each ripple, each soft slap of water against reed feels deliberate, as if the swamp is watching you waiting. You trudge forward, boots heavy with muck, and for a moment you swear you see it, a faint glimmer of movement on the far side of a flooded clearing. A figure perhaps low to the ground, gliding over the silt like smoke over water, but when you blink it's gone. The marshland tribe, or just your imagination swelled by shadows and the endless hum of night. You kneel at the water's edge, peering closer at what little evidence the marsh offers. There beneath a curtain of reeds, you find it a scrap of something pale and textured caught on a submerged branch. Carefully, you fish it out. The material is soft, almost slimy but strong, like cured leather, but thinner, more flexible. A remnant of the marshland tribe's legendary shoes, perhaps? It smells faintly of river mud and something else, reptilian. Here's where it gets fascinating. The people of this marsh, historians believe, crafted their shoes from the hides of river beasts, water lizards, and giant otters that thrived in these wetlands. Their skins were tanned in smoke pits softened with fish oil and marsh herbs. The result? A material so pliant it could mold to the wearer's foot, spreading pressure so evenly that even the softest mud gave no mark. You can't help but think Nike eat your heart out. Odd fact time. Did you know some cultures thousands of miles from this swamp once used fish skins to make waterproof clothing? The Ainu of Japan, for instance, stitched salmon skins into coats that shimmered like the water itself. Historians still debate whether similar techniques traveled along ancient trade routes, or if great minds simply thought alike across the ages. You rub the scrap of hide between your fingers. It's delicate now after centuries of submersion, but once it must have been strong enough to bear the weight of a hunter or a scout as they moved silently across the marsh. Imagine that footwear that not only kept you dry but made you invisible in a way. No tracks to follow, no splashes to hear. Just the land undisturbed. And because I promised you 3 jokes per 1,000 words, don't try making your own marsh shoes from leftover raincoats. I tried. The only thing I got was wet feet and a face full of mosquito bites. Also, fun fact, turns out mosquitoes find wet polyester very tasty. You pause to listen. The marsh is a symphony of tiny noises, the drip of water from an overloaded reed, the soft grunt of some unseen beast, settling into the muck, the papery rustle of bat wings overhead. And beneath it all, a silence so deep it presses on your ears. The kind of silence that tells you you're not alone. You move on thinking about those shoes, how they were made, what they meant. More than just clothing, they were tools of survival, of mastery over an unforgiving land. They allowed the marshland tribe to cross territory others couldn't, to disappear where others would leave a trail as plain as day. And your boots squelch like rubber ducks with every step. Not exactly stealth mode. There's a patch of higher ground ahead, a rise of roots and tangled branches just above the waterline. You haul yourself onto it, grateful for the break from the sucking mud. From here, you can see farther across the still pools, the maze of reeds and driftwood. You imagine the marshland tribe slipping through this labyrinth, their soft shoes padding silently over mats of floating grass, their bodies low, their breaths slow, ghosts of flesh and bone. Historians still argue over the specifics of those shoes. Some say they were cut in the shape of the wearer's foot, molded perfectly to fit. Others believe they were more like slippers, loose and soft, meant to be tied with strips of eel-skin or braided grass. There's even an old tale that the soles were smeared with ash to make them blend with the mud. Practical, maybe, or maybe just a story told by someone who got tired of looking for tracks that weren't there. You sit on your little island of roots, the night air thick and sweet and wet, and you think about those ancient craftsmen. How they must have studied the creatures of the marsh, learning from the otters, the lizards, the herons, how to move without leaving a mark. How to belong to the land so completely that it kept your secrets. You glance down at your own boots, caked in mud, heavy as stones. Not exactly the stuff of legends, but hey, at least they're waterproof. Mostly. And because you deserve another laugh, if you ever find yourself trying to outsneak a marshland tribe, maybe don't bring that crunchy energy bar for midnight snacks. Just saying. Somewhere out there in the dark, a ripple spreads across the water. Wide and slow, as if something large just slipped beneath the surface. You hold your breath listening. The marshland tribe might have passed this way, might even be watching you now. Or maybe it's just a fish. Or the swamp itself shifting in its endless sleep. Either way, you're part of the marsh now. For better or worse. The moon climbs higher, a pale coin tangled in mist, and the marsh glows silver where it isn't black. You press on boots, squelching, and every splash, every seek of mud feels louder than it should. You can't help but wince with each step. Somewhere out here, the marshland tribe once walked, and they didn't sound like a wayward shopping cart with a bad wheel. They moved as one silent, smooth, invisible masters of this drowned world. You stop suddenly aware that you're not alone. The reeds rustle in a way that doesn't match the breeze. You crouch, heart thudding, and peer through the grass, there. The faintest shape, low gliding no higher than your waist. The figure is almost part of the marsh, blending with the reeds and shadows, and it moves in a way that makes your skin prickle. Single file. That's the trick. The marshland tribe didn't scatter their steps, didn't bumble around like tourists. They walked one behind the other feet, falling in the same places, so even if a tracker spotted something, an accidental scuff, a bent reed, it would look like the passing of one, not many. Historians still debate whether this method was purely tactical or had spiritual significance. Did they move in single file to confuse enemies? Or was it part of their bond with the marsh? Maybe both. After all, in a place where land and water blur, what better way to stay safe than to become part of the blur yourself? A soft splash ahead pulls your eye, too gentle for a big animal, too deliberate for a fish. The tribe's scouts perhaps slipping through the shallows. Or your imagination again working overtime. Either way, you stay low, watching, listening, trying, and failing to be as silent as they were. Here's your odd fact for this stretch of the swamp. In some ancient cultures, single-file walking wasn't just for stealth. It was a way to honor the leader or the eldest, to symbolically show unity and respect. So maybe those marsh walkers weren't just hiding. They were following a rhythm, a chain of trust, one footstep to the next. And here's your joke for this section. Try getting your family to walk single file on a weekend hike. Someone's bound to stop for snacks, someone else will wander off chasing butterflies, and before you know it, you've left a trail that even a blindfolded chicken could follow. You ease forward, mimicking what you've seen, placing your feet carefully in the prints your own boots just made. The mud gives a little less under your weight this way, and for a moment, just a moment, you can almost imagine what it was like. Moving through this place like a shadow. No tracks, no sound, no sign that you were ever there. You pause at the edge of a broad pool, its surface smooth as glass. The moon's reflection stares up at you, distorted by ripples that drift in from the far shore. You squint, trying to see, was that a canoe? A raft? A trick of the light. Whatever it was, it's gone now, swallowed by the dark. Historians still argue over how much of the marshland tribe's stealth was learned and how much was luck of geography. Did the shape of their land with its endless water and mud shape their ways? Or did they master the land first, bending it to their will? The evidence is murky like the marsh itself. You straighten slowly, feeling the weight of the night pressing on your shoulders. The marshland tribe passed this way once. Now the only footsteps are yours, loud, clumsy, impossible to hide. But you can still learn. Still try to walk softer. Listen. Better become part of the land instead of just passing through it. And hey, If nothing else, you've learned this waterproof boots aren't nearly as waterproof as the label claims. And marsh mud. It has no mercy. None. A night heron cries somewhere in the dark, a harsh, lonely sound that echoes across the water. The reeds sway and the stars blink in and out behind drifting mist. The marsh is alive, and you're only a guest here, one who's overstayed their welcome, maybe. But you keep going, drawn by the mystery, the story, the hope of seeing what those soft-shoed ghosts saw long ago. You step carefully now, mindful of each squelch and splash, trying to match your rhythm to the hush of the swamp. One foot after the other. Single file. Like them, you press deeper into the marsh, the night wrapping around you like damp velvet. The stars above are little more than pale smudges behind a veil of mist, and the moon, once a bright sentinel, now hides behind clouds. Every breath tastes of brine and moss, and beneath your boots the ground feels less like earth and more like memory, soft yielding, ready to swallow whatever dares disturb it. You stop and stare at the mud pooling around your feet, wondering how the marshland tribe passed through without leaving a single mark. And then you see it. Or rather, you see nothing, that's the point. A stretch of mud flat as a mirror, unmarred, untouched. Though surely someone came this way. The tribe's secret lay not only in their shoes, but in what they wore beneath them. Woven grass pads, broad and delicate, lashed to their soles, spreading their weight across a wider surface. Like snowshoes, but for silt and swamp. Each step so light, so distributed, the mud never noticed. No sink, no squelch, no trace. Historians still debate whether these pads were purely functional or also carried meaning, perhaps woven in patterns that signaled tribe rank or purpose. Some say fragments of such pads found in ancient peat bogs bear marks that look suspiciously like symbols. Others think those patterns were just the natural weave of grass. The argument, like most, ends in scholarly shrugs. You crouch, imagining what it must have felt like to walk this way, gliding over a treacherous land as if on solid ground. The pads weren't just clever, they were survival. They allowed the marsh folk to slip past enemies, to stalk prey, to vanish into the landscape like wind over water. And here's your odd fact for the night: in parts of ancient Scandinavia, people made bog shoes from birch bark, light and wide, so they could cross marshes without sinking. Convergent evolution of footwear, if you will. Somewhere out there, a marshland shoemaker and a Viking cobbler would have gotten along famously. A ripple breaks the surface of a nearby pool, and you freeze. It's large, too large for a frog, too purposeful for a fish. Something or someone is out there. Watching, passing through. Or maybe like you, just trying not to get stuck. The marshland tribe knew this dance. You're just learning the steps. And speaking of steps, here's your joke for this section. If you ever try to DIY marsh pads out of lawn clippings and flip-flops, don't. The only thing you'll get is wet socks and a new appreciation for ancient engineers. Ask me how I know. You push on, stepping carefully, trying to spread your weight as you go. It works a little. The mud doesn't suck quite as eagerly at your boots. And for a fleeting moment, you feel connected to the tribe, to the land, to the rhythm of the swamp itself. A connection broken, of course, when you misjudge a patch and sink to mid-calf with an embarrassing splorch. So much for grace. You pull yourself free, the night filled with the music of insects and the soft drip of water from overhanging branches. The marshland tribe must have moved like wraiths, their grass pads and soft shoes, making them part of this place rather than visitors like you. Imagine the patience, the skill, the sheer intimacy with the land it took to craft those tools and use them well. Historians still argue over how widespread this technology was. Were such marsh pads unique to this tribe, or did neighboring people share similar tricks? Were the secrets of the swamp closely guarded or traded like shells and herbs? No one really knows. The marsh keeps its secrets well. You pause to catch your breath, listening to the night. The swamp seems to settle around you, as if deciding you're no threat, no part of the story worth noting. And maybe that's a mercy. The marshland tribe left no footprints. Tonight, neither will you, not because of skill, but because the mud will claim yours before dawn. The mist thickens as you move on, curling low over the pools and drifting through the reeds like something alive. The moon flickers behind ragged clouds, and the marsh glows faintly in that eerie silvered way that makes you wonder if you're dreaming. You pause, breath shallow, listening for whatever rustled just beyond your sight. And then you remember the story one the old marsh elders used to tell, whispered across the firelight. There was once a scout of the marshland tribe, they said, who moved so lightly it seemed the earth forgot he touched it. His soft shoes and woven grass pads weren't just tools, they were extensions of his body. He would glide through the swamp on moonless nights, his steps falling in rhythm with the wind, with the ripple of the reeds, with the heartbeat of the land itself. They called him the dancer because that's what his passage looked like, a dance with the marsh so fluid, so precise. No creature stirred at his coming. Historians still debate whether this dancer was a real person or just a tale told to frighten would-be intruders. Some argue old carvings show a figure in mid-step, arms raised as if balancing on air. Others think the story is pure myth, spun from the need to explain how an entire tribe could move unseen. Either way, the legend lingers like the scent of salt in the air. You try to picture it, this dancer, skimming the marsh's surface as if weightless feet barely bending the grass. You try to imagine yourself doing the same. You take a step, careful, slow, placing your foot just so, spreading your weight, and you promptly sink to the ankle in muck. So much for grace. The marsh seems to chuckle at your effort. Or maybe that's just the frogs. Here's your odd fact for tonight's stroll. Certain Native American tribes crafted moccasins with extra-wide soles for soft terrain, much like the marshland tribe's shoes. Different places, same problem, same solution. Proof, perhaps, that marshes everywhere have tested human ingenuity and human dignity. You move again, watching the play of shadows on the water, the delicate ripple of a fish or frog disturbed by your presence. Somewhere in the dark, a nightbird cries out sharp and sudden, and your heart jumps. You smile at your own nerves. You're no dancer, that's for sure. And here's your light-hearted reminder if you're trying to master silent movement in a marsh. Maybe don't wear your squeaky rain jacket. Nothing ruins the mood like sounding like a plastic bag in a breeze. Been there. Regret it. The story of the dancer sticks in your mind as you push on. You wonder if the marshland tribe truly had such masters of stealth, or if the dancer was a symbol of harmony with the land, of the perfect union of human and nature. Someone who moved so well, the marsh itself welcomed his steps, let him pass without a ripple. A dream, maybe. Or a goal. Historians still puzzle over how the tribe achieved such fluid movement. Was it practice? Was it design? Was it belief? Or all three woven together like the reeds beneath your feet? The answer, like so much here, lies hidden beneath layers of mudwater and time. You pause at the edge of a shallow channel, the water dark and still. You could swear just for a heartbeat that you see it, the faintest outline of a figure stepping lightly along a ridge of grass, arms out for balance, head low, moving like mist itself. But when you blink, the vision's gone, leaving only the marsh, the night, and the endless song of frogs and insects. You stand there a moment longer, letting the damp air fill your lungs, letting the swamp's rhythm seep into your bones. The dancer. If he ever lived, is long gone, but his story remains, and tonight for a little while, it's yours too. The night grows thicker, the air so heavy with moisture it clings to your skin like a second layer. The marsh feels endless now, just pools and reeds and shadows, the ground beneath your feet, soft and treacherous, the sky above a lid of low clouds. And somewhere out there in the dark you hear them at last. A soft shuffle, a splash so slight, It could be mistaken for a fish or a frog, but you know better. The marshland tribe is passing by. You crouch behind a fallen log, heart pounding, trying to still your breath. There, slipping between the reeds, are figures so faint they could be tricks of the moonlight. But no, they're real. And they're moving in that same silent single-file way, feet hidden beneath what you now recognize as the soft shoes of legend. Not a squelch, not a snap of twig, not a rustle that isn't part of the natural sway of the marsh. Historians still debate how the tribe managed to patrol their lands at night without betraying their presence. Was it the shoes alone, the practiced steps, the rhythm of their breathing matched to the sounds of the swamp? Or was it something deeper, an understanding so complete that the land itself protected them? No one agrees. The marsh keeps that answer close. You watch as they move so at ease in this watery maze, their soft shoes masking even the wet suck of mud. And then you realize it's not just the shoes. It's the way they walk, slow, deliberate weight spread carefully with each step, arms out for balance, bodies low and flexible like reeds bending in the breeze. They move as the marsh moves. They are part of it. Here's your odd fact to ponder while you hold your breath in parts of ancient Polynesia. Night fishermen would wrap their feet in woven mats of palm frond not for comfort, but so they could move across reef flats without a sound. The marshland tribe wasn't alone in finding ways to walk without waking the world. You shift slightly trying to see better, and of course your boot finds the one hidden root in the mud. It creaks, loudly, embarrassingly. The nearest figure freezes, head turning your way. You freeze too suddenly, very aware of how loud your heartbeat sounds in your own ears. But after a breath or three, the figure moves on and the others follow like shadows dissolving into the reeds. And here's your joke for this section: if you ever want to feel truly invisible, don't try it in a marsh. The frogs will rat you out every time. You stay crouched a moment longer, listening to the night. The swamp slowly reclaims its quiet. The insects buzz, the frogs sing, the water drips. And you're left with the memory of that silent procession, so skilled, so perfectly in tune with this strange sunken world. Historians still puzzle over whether the marshland tribe's night patrols were for defense, for hunting, or perhaps for something more ceremonial. There are old stories, half forgotten now, that speak of guardians who walked the borders of their world, ensuring no harm came to the swamp or its secrets. But whether that's fact or fable, well, the marsh isn't saying. You rise slowly, careful now, trying to match their steps, their silence, their grace. And failing, of course. But for a heartbeat or two as the mist closes around you and the water smooths out behind your passage, you can almost believe you're part of this place too. Dawn is still a promise beyond the horizon, but the marsh begins to change. The night's deep hush gives way to the tentative chatter of waking birds, the soft crackle of reeds shifting in a breeze too faint to feel. You keep moving slower now, thinking of what you just saw. The silent procession, the marshland tribe vanishing into the dark like smoke into fog. And then quite suddenly you spot something that makes you stop cold. Footprints. Or at least what looks like them at first, a trail of prints along a narrow mud bank, human perhaps, but off. Too perfect, too evenly spaced, and leading nowhere in particular. You step closer, examining them. The edges are too clean, too sharp for something made by a living foot. And then you see it, a discarded piece of carved wood, worn smooth, the shape of a human foot, hollowed into it. A decoy. A trick. Historians still debate how widespread this practice was. Some argue the marshland tribe pioneered the art of false trails, using wooden stencils or carved pads to mislead enemies. Others say that's just a romantic theory, and these relics were ceremonial offerings perhaps to the spirits of the swamp. The truth, as always, lies somewhere beneath layers of mud and myth. You crouch, picking up the piece of wood. It's light waterlogged, but you can see where it was shaped, where cords once tied it to a foot or hand. You imagine the tribe's scouts slipping through the marsh, leaving decoy prints in places where they wanted to lure pursuers, leading raiders into dead-end pools, quicksand patches, or tangles of thorned reeds. Clever, ruthless, effective. And here's your odd fact for the morning. Ancient hunters in some Arctic regions used wooden snowshoe prints carved to look like wolf tracks, confusing prey and rival hunters alike. Decoys aren't just for ducks, my friend. You glance back at your own boot prints, deep and messy, and can't help but smile. No one's going to mistake those for anything but what they are. A visitor lost and loud, but the marshland tribe, they could walk through this place and make you think they were someone or something else entirely. And your lighthearted tip for today: if you're thinking of crafting your own decoy prints, don't model them on your cousin's feet after a long hike. Trust me, no one's fooled by that. The sun begins to blush at the edge of the world, turning the water to molten copper, casting long shadows across the pools. You stand there, holding that bit of carved wood, and think about the minds that shaped it, the hands that tied it, the feet that wore it. And you wonder how many enemies were led astray by such simple, clever tricks. Historians still argue whether the marshland tribe's mastery of false trails was born of necessity or if it was part of a deeper philosophy, a way of life that prized the art of misdirection, the beauty of the unseen. Either way, you can't help but admire it. You tuck the decoy piece gently back where you found it, a small tribute to the clever ghosts of this place. The marsh has its secrets, and now you've touched one. Just one. The sun rises slow and low, its light filtering through a gauze of mist that clings stubbornly to the marsh. The world is painted in shades of pewter and gold, the pools of water like polished mirrors, the reeds trembling with the first stirrings of day. You walk on boots heavy with mud, but something pulls at you, a sense that you're close to another fragment of the marshland tribe's vanished path. Your eyes catch it just beneath a mat of floating grass. A piece of driftwood charred at the edges with faint black lines scorched across its surface. You drag it free, turning it in your hands. The lines curve and weave, intersecting in strange patterns. A map, or what's left of one. But not a map made for you. This is a map of the marsh's forgotten routes, channels now silted over islands, swallowed by rising water trails, known only to those who once lived as part of this place. Historians still debate whether the marshland tribe kept such maps for navigation or ritual. Some believe these were working charts used by scouts to mark safe passages and hunting grounds. Others argue they were spiritual artifacts, offerings to the marsh itself, their lines representing the flow of water, of life, of spirit. The truth, as always, is buried beneath layers of mud and memory. You trace one of the lines with your finger, feeling where the charcoal sank deep into the grain. The wood is soft from its long sleep in the water, but the marks endure stubborn against time. You try to follow the path with your eyes, imagining the hidden ways it once marked routes only the marshland tribe could see, could feel beneath their feet. Here's your odd fact for today. The Polynesians made stick charts for navigating vast oceans, using bits of wood and shells to mark currents and islands. Their maps, like this one, weren't meant to be read with the eyes alone. They were to be felt, understood through touch, through memory, through a deep connection to the land or sea. You glance around, half expecting to see the tribe's ghosts stepping silently through the morning mist, their soft shoes leaving no trace on mud or memory. But of course, there's only you in the marsh, and this fragile relic of what once was. And your joke for the day: if you ever try to make your own marsh map on a camping trip, maybe don't use your s'mores sticks. The ants will thank you. You won't. The breeze picks up, rustling the reeds, stirring the mist. The marsh seems to sigh, as if relieved that another night has passed without trouble. You set the charred driftwood back where you found it, easing it beneath the grass mat, letting it sink once more into its watery grave. Some things are best left where they belong. Historians still puzzle over how many such maps may lie hidden beneath the marsh's surface, protected by water and silt. Dozens, hundreds. Or is this the last? No one knows. The marsh keeps its secrets well, as it always has. You move on the sun, warm now on your back, the marshland, waking fully at last. The birds call, the frogs sing, and somewhere in the distance a fish splashes, sending ripples across the glassy water. You follow the rhythm of those ripples, wondering where they lead. Wondering if the marshland tribe is still out there, in some way walking those hidden paths where no footprint ever falls. The morning deepens, light turning from gold to white as the sun climbs, burning away the last scraps of mist. The marsh looks different now, less dreamlike, more raw. Pools of water gleam between tangled roots, and the reeds hiss as the breeze picks up. You keep moving, drawn onward by the weight of stories you've gathered in the night. And as you step onto a stretch of firmer ground, you remember the tale that always comes next, the one the marshland tribe's enemies never told. Long ago or so, the stories say raiders came to these marshes. They thought to seize what the tribe had to crush them underfoot and blade. But they underestimated the swamp and those who knew its ways. The marshland tribe lured them deep into the mire along false trails, over sinking islands and hidden channels. The raiders chased shadows, followed decoy prints, lost themselves in a world that shifted beneath their feet. And one by one they vanished, claimed by the mud, the water, the silence. Historians still argue over this tale. Did the swamp itself defeat those who invaded? Or was it the tribe's cunning decoy prints, false trails, silent steps that turned the marsh into a trap? Some say both. Others think the story grew in the telling, shaped by the marshland tribe's need for legend, for warning. Either way, no one who entered uninvited ever left with victory. You pause on a small rise of tangled roots, looking out over the endless maze of water and grass. It's easy to see how a stranger could become lost here. Every pool looks like the last. Every patch of ground hides dangers beneath. The land itself is a weapon in the right hands or feet. Here's your odd fact for this part of our walk. During the Roman Empire, Germanic tribes are said to have used bogs and swamps as natural defenses, leading legions into terrain where their discipline meant nothing. The marsh has always been friend to the native, foe to the invader. You smile, imagining the raiders floundering in the mud, their boots heavy, their swords useless. The marshland tribe needed no blades, no walls, no towers. They had the swamp, and the swamp had them. And because we all need a chuckle in the middle of a marsh, if you ever try leading your friends on a shortcut through a swamp, don't be surprised if they stop listening to your directions forever. Just saying. You move on, feeling the land under your feet change with every step. One patch firm, the next a hidden sink. One moment the reeds open, the next they close around you like a cage. And through it all, you think of the marshland tribe, how they must have known this world not just with their eyes, but with their skin, their bones, their breath. Historians still debate how much of the tribe's defense was planned, and how much was simply the marsh's nature. But no one disputes this: the invaders who entered the swamp seeking conquest found only silence and mud. You pause once more, listening. The marsh is quiet now, save for the wind and the birds, and the distant splash of something unseen. The raiders are long gone, but their folly lingers, a warning as old as the mud itself. The sun is well up now, its light glinting off the water in shards of silver so bright it makes your eyes ache. The marsh hums with life, dragonflies darting like tiny helicopters, frogs croaking their approval of the daybirds wheeling overhead in slow, lazy spirals. You press on, drawn by a flicker of movement at the edge of a stand of reeds. As you ease closer, you see them, two figures still as shadows, crouched at the water's edge. The marshland tribe, or what's left of it. You duck, low, heart racing, watching as they go about their work. It's a barter, but not the kind you're used to. No words pass between them. No nods. No gestures beyond the slow, deliberate placing of goods. A woven basket of herbs set on a stone, a string of shells laid beside it. The trade is done in silence and respect for the marsh, for the moment, for each other. And when it's done, they rise and slip away, leaving nothing. No mark, no sound, no footprint, as if they'd never been there at all. Historians still debate the meaning of these silent exchanges. Some argue it was practical words carried in the marsh after all, and you never know who's listening. Others believe it was ceremonial, a way of showing that the marshland tribe's bond was so deep it needed no voice. Either way, it's a lesson in how much can be said without a single word. You crouch beside the stone examining it. No sign of the traders remains, no heel prints in the mud, no scuffs on the grass. Just the faint impression of the basket's weave where it rested for a moment. And even that is fading fast, swallowed by the land's slow breath. Here's your odd fact: in parts of the ancient Andes, traders would conduct silent markets, placing goods and waiting for others to leave an acceptable offering. No haggling, no arguing, just a quiet agreement between equals. Sometimes silence speaks loudest. And because no swamp tale should be without a little levity, if you ever try this kind of silent trade at your local yard sale, don't be surprised if you end up with a box of mismatched socks. True story. You stand, stretching out your legs, the marsh's damp chill creeping through your boots. You can't help but admire the simplicity of the exchange you just witnessed. No coins, no contracts, just trust and a shared understanding of what the land allows. Historians still argue over how common these silent trades were and whether they were born of necessity or choice. But looking around at the endless listening marsh, you can't help but think sometimes the smartest thing is to let the land keep its peace. You move on your steps, careful now, as if hoping to leave no mark, as if trying to match in your clumsy way the grace of those who passed before. The marsh watches, silent and patient. By now, the sun has climbed high enough to burn the last shreds of mist from the marsh, leaving everything exposed under its bright, pitiless light. The water gleams like molten glass, and every blade of reed, every lump of mud casts a hard shadow. You press forward, boots caked in layers of silt, and there, half buried at the edge of a fallen log, you spot something pale, something shaped by hands long gone. You kneel, brushing aside the mud, and lift it free, a shoe, or what remains of one, soft as old bark but still holding its shape. The toe is hardened, as if treated with ash or sap. The sole pliable, but tough, fashioned from eel-skin, stitched with grass cord. The heel is worn smooth, the work of 1,000 silent steps. You turn it in your hands, marveling at the craftsmanship, the way form meets function in a design so simple it seems modern. Historians still debate how these shoes were made to last in such harsh, wet terrain. Some believe they were treated with resin or smoke-cured to resist rot. Others argue that the tribe simply remade their shoes, often using what the marsh gave, letting each pair return to the earth when its work was done. Either way, what you hold now feels like a link to a world that moved with the land, not against it. You imagine the wearer feet wrapped in eel skin and ash, stepping from log to log, toe grip sure on slick wood heel, soft enough to leave no mark on mud. A hunter, perhaps, or a scout. Someone who knew how to move so well the marsh itself forgot they'd passed. Odd fact for your stroll: the Sami people of northern Europe once made shoes from reindeer hide stuffed with dry grass for warmth and comfort. Like the marshland tribe's eel-skin soles, these shoes were born of necessity, of knowing the land and using what it offers. You set the shoe gently on a sun-warmed stone, as if returning it to the marsh's keeping. And because every swamp tale deserves a grin. If you ever try making your own shoes from eel skin, make sure the eel is definitely no longer eeling. A lesson learned the hard way. You rise, brushing mud from your knees, and take a breath of the marsh's warm, salt-tinged air. The shoe, the trade, the map, all pieces of a puzzle you'll never fully solve. But for now, you've seen enough to understand this much. The marshland tribe's genius wasn't just in their tools. It was in their harmony with a place that forgets most who pass through it. Historians still argue whether the marshland tribe's shoes were purely practical or also held deeper meaning, marks of status, perhaps, or tokens of belonging. But as the wind stirs the reeds and the marsh sighs around you, you suspect the truth is simpler. The shoes were what they needed to be. Nothing more, nothing less. You move on your boots, loud and clumsy on the sodden ground, but your step's a little softer now, a little more careful, a little more like theirs. The marsh stretches on endless, and inscrutable its pools and channels glittering beneath the midday sun. The air hums with the sound of life dragonflies rattling their wings, frogs chirping, like tiny bells, the occasional splash of something unseen slipping beneath the surface. You walk slower now, each step a deliberate negotiation with the sucking mud, the hidden roots. And then you come upon a place that feels different, sacred somehow. A clearing where the reeds part, where the water lies smooth as glass, where the air seems to remember. You stop at the edge, gazing at the wide, flat patch of marsh grass, and you can almost see them. The marshland tribe moving in slow circles, their soft shoes brushing the ground without stirring it, their bodies swaying like the reeds in a wind too gentle to feel. A dance, maybe, or a ritual. No prints, no broken stems, no sign they were ever here, save for the hush that lingers the way the air holds its breath. Historians still debate whether the marshland tribe's gatherings were for ceremony for bonding, or simply a way to practice the art of leaving no trace. Some argue that these places, these clearings, were chosen for their acoustics, for how the land amplified or muted their steps, their songs. Others say the tribe danced not to be seen, but to be forgotten by the world beyond the marsh. No one knows. The marsh doesn't tell. You take a step forward, and even though you try to move softly, the grass bends beneath your boot. The mud oozes up with a wet sigh. You freeze, feeling clumsy, uninvited, as if you've interrupted something ancient. Something that lingers only as memory. Odd fact for this moment, certain Aboriginal groups in Australia are known for practicing invisible ceremonies, rituals so subtle, so woven into the land that only those who belong can see or hear them. The marshland tribe perhaps shared that gift of blending wholly with place and time. And your chuckle for this section if you're ever tempted to reenact such a dance in your backyard marsh, or, puddle, maybe don't wear flip-flops. The sound alone will summon every curious neighbor for miles, and not in a good way. You stand a moment longer, the breeze cooling the sweat on your neck, listening. The marsh hums its slow, patient tune, unchanged, unbothered by your presence. The tribe is gone, but their steps remain in the hush, in the stillness, in the way the land remembers even what it erases. Historians still argue whether such gatherings left any physical mark traces. We simply haven't learned how to see, or whether their magic was in being truly invisible. But as you turn to go, glancing once more at the unbroken grass, you suspect the latter. Sometimes the greatest legacy is knowing how to disappear. You move on, boots heavy again, the spell of the place clinging to you like the marsh's mist. And as you go, you walk a little softer, try a little harder to feel the rhythm of the land beneath your feet. The afternoon drifts on the marsh, shimmering beneath the heat of the sun, and the air grows thick, heavy, as if the swamp itself is pressing close. Each breath tastes of salt and wet grass, and the cries of birds echo across the water like warnings. You move carefully, boots sinking with every step, the ground beneath you soft as memory. And then, almost hidden in a tangle of roots and reeds, you see it, a carving shallow and weathered on a chunk of driftwood wedged against a log. A face, perhaps, or a warning, or both. You ease closer, crouching low, studying the lines cut into the wood. Simple, almost childlike, a pair of eyes, a curve that could be a mouth. Marks beneath, that might be meant to show teeth, or maybe waves or mud or something you can't name. The marshland tribe's elder perhaps leaving a message for those who would follow. Or a sign to remind themselves here even the swamp watches. Historians still debate the meaning of such carvings. Were they warnings, totems, markers of sacred ground? Some scholars believe the tribe carved these faces at the borders of their world, meant to frighten intruders or placate the spirits of the swamp. Others argue they were nothing more than idle work scratches made while waiting out a storm or watching the tide. No one agrees. The marsh doesn't answer. And then you remember the tale that goes with this place. The tale of the elder who warned his people, Leave no footprints or the marsh will swallow you body and soul. A curse. A rule, a reminder of the bond between land and people. Historians still argue about that too. But the story lingers like the heat, like the hum of insects. Here's your odd fact for the day. In parts of ancient Mesopotamia, boundary stones called kuduru were carved with faces and symbols to warn trespassers of divine punishment. Different land, same idea. Don't mess where you don't belong. And because no tale of marshland mystery should go without a smile if you try carving a warning face into driftwood on your next camping trip, don't be surprised when it looks more like a sad potato. Art's hard, especially with a pocket knife. You touch the carving feeling where the lines bite into the wood, where time and water have softened the edges. The elder's warning, whether real or imagined, rings in your mind. And as you rise and move on, you can't help but step a little lighter as if the swamp is watching. Because maybe, just maybe it is. The breeze picks up, stirring the reeds, carrying the rich green smell of the marsh. And you go on, boots sinking, boots rising, trying to remember the lesson of the elder's face: the land keeps what it takes. Leave no trace. The afternoon edges toward evening, and the marsh seems to grow still again, as if pausing to catch its breath before night's return. The light softens, casting everything in a wash of gold and shadow, and the air hums with the low drone of insects settling in for the dark. You're tired now, boots heavy, with layers of mud clothes damp with sweat and swamp water, but something keeps you moving. A sense that there is one last piece of the tribe's story waiting for you. And then you see it. Half hidden, where the land meets water in a patch of clay, hardened by sun and time, a footprint. Just one. A heel print, shallow and worn, its edges softened by countless rains and tides, but they're all the same. The marshland tribe's final mark. Or just an accident, one missed by chance, left behind by someone too weary or too hurried to walk with care. You crouch, tracing its outline with your fingers. The print is small, lighter than you expected, the kind that might have belonged to a scout or a child. The toe is gone, melted into the clay, but the heel remains pressed firm into the earth. A reminder that even the most skilled can slip, that even ghosts leave echoes sometimes. Historians still debate the significance of such finds. Was this a rare mistake, proof that even the marshland tribe could falter? Or was it left deliberately, a sign for those who followed a message hidden in plain sight? Some claim these prints were part of a ritual, a way of anchoring spirit to land before moving on. Others think they're nothing but chance, the marsh giving up one of its secrets at random. And here's your odd fact for this golden hour. In parts of ancient Egypt, footprints carved in temple thresholds symbolize the pharaoh's claim to the land, a way of saying, "I was here and this is mine." Perhaps this print means the opposite, a gentle whisper of, "We were here, but we claim nothing." You sit back on your heels, staring at that single mark, and wonder how long it will last. Another rain, another tide, and it'll be gone, returned to the marsh's keeping. Maybe that's the point. The marshland tribe didn't build monuments. Their legacy was in what they didn't leave behind. And because no quiet marsh moment should be without a grin, if you're ever tempted to leave your own footprint for posterity, maybe skip the clay. Nothing like having your size 11 immortalized next to a dainty prehistoric heel print. I speak from experience. The wind stirs again, carrying the rich, wet scent of the swamp, and the birds cry out as the sun dips lower, turning the water to fire. You rise, brushing mud from your hands, and step carefully around that lonely print as if disturbing it might break a spell. You walk on boots, squelching softly, the marsh silent once more behind you. Historians still argue whether that final mark was meant to be found, but as the light fades and the swamp sighs into night, you know this much. The marsh remembers what it chooses and forgets the rest. Dusk spreads its cool fingers across the marsh, softening the harsh glare of day into gentle shades of blue and silver. The water mirrors the sky now, so perfectly still you hesitate to disturb it. The wind quiets, and the reeds stop their endless whispering as if the whole swamp is waiting, listening, holding its breath. And you stop too, standing at the edge of a wide pool, realizing you've reached the end of the tribe's trail. No footprints, no more relics, just the hush of a place that forgets. You breathe deep, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and salt, and something ancient. The marshland tribe is gone. Their soft shoes, their clever decoys, their silent trades, all of it swallowed by the land they called home. Gone without a trace, save for the stories the swamp lets slip now and then like ripples on still water. Historians still debate whether the marshland tribe truly vanished without leaving behind a mark, or whether we've simply failed to see what they left. Some say their legacy lives in the ways the marsh still guards its secrets, in the paths that twist and turn and disappear beneath the mud. Others argue that the tribe's greatest monument is the swamp itself, a living memory of those who once walked its hidden trails. You crouch by the water's edge, watching as the first stars blink to life above their pale light reflected in the black mirror at your feet. The swamp is quiet now, but not empty. Never empty. The tribe's footsteps may be gone, but the rhythm of their passage lingers in the breeze, in the ripple of the reeds, in the hush that settles when night falls. You feel it like a heartbeat beneath your own. And your odd fact to end our journey: in some parts of ancient India, whole communities believed their footprints tied them to this world, and so they went barefoot whenever possible, letting the earth remember them gently. The marshland tribe perhaps shared that wisdom. Your smile for the road? If you ever think you've mastered moving without a trace, try sneaking past a goose. Trust me, the goose always wins. Always. You rise the breeze, tugging at your sleeves, and take one last look at the marsh stretched out before you. The tribe's legacy isn't in what you can find. It's in what you can't. In what the land keeps safe. In the silence that says we were here and we left no harm behind. You turn and walk back the way you came, boots heavy, footsteps loud, but heart a little lighter. The marsh watches you go, patient, unchanged, as it has always been. The swamp quiets as night takes hold, and so we slow down here at the end of our journey. The land, the sky, the water all blur together, now soft as mist, as memory. You stand at the edge of it, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of the stories you've gathered. The marshland tribe is gone. Yes, but their legacy lingers in the hush, in the hidden paths, in the way the land remembers and forgets at its choosing. Let it be enough tonight to have walked where they walked, to have seen what they saw, and to leave as they did without disturbing the world more than it can bear. Close your eyes. Let the sound of the wind, the ripple of water, the distant cry of a nightbird carry you. The marsh will keep its secrets, and you'll keep this story.